Troubled waters, so I'm rebellious now. Arya's voice came out high-pitched as she lowered the letter and looked at him. She was leaning against the kitchen counter while he was having his breakfast. Eragon almost choked on his tea when he laughed at her outrage. She flapped the parchment in front of his face and joined him at the kitchen table. He will never believe that. He is not supposed to believe it. His job is to show you loyalty and bring to you any concerning matters. And why would he be concerned about me being a rebel rider and prioritizing my duty as the queen? He will be delighted to hear that. Eragon was not disturbed by her argumentation. He shoved a cherry in his mouth and motioned for her to keep reading. Just read the letter, Arya. Her eyes flicked to him before passing through the lines in black ink. She gasped and turned to him again. You asked him for help. Eragon laughed hard of her disproportional reaction that was even louder this time. Why would I send him a letter to tell him that you've been defying my command if I won't ask for something? A letter must have a motive, you know. But her cheeks were red in annoyance. That's absurd. It tinges my name. Eragon down the rest of his tea and got up to wash the cup in the basin. On the contrary. Imagine that he spreads the word that you are a rebel rider that has no regard for the chain of command in our order. It will divert the eyes from our involvement at the same time it will tell you he is a traitor. He turned to face her while drying the cup with a dish rag. If he tries to help me to get you back under my command, the word won't get out. But you will know that his loyalty is volatile. It depends on his motives. Now, he pointed a finger at her. If you hear it first when he comes to warn you against me, there's still the chance he is doing it just to separate us even further, but it's a good sign that you have a loyal advisor and friend. Arya stood up with an unwelcoming expression and moved to be in front of him. Eragon put the cup and the rag away, and they stared at each other. There's a lot of ifs in this plan of yours. She pushed the parchment to his chest. He grabbed it without diverting his gaze. What does it mean? Should I cancel it? Rework it? His eyes lit up. No. We should work on this together. It will be fun to come up with a story. She sighed and blinked slowly to control her temper as he assumed. It means that I don't like it. Not only the story, but the whole plan. It's manipulative, dirty, and it makes me look bad even to my ally. Even if he thinks that ridding myself of your influence is a must. Eragon felt disappointed. He wanted her to support him and give the same importance to the death threats as he was giving. He felt as he was the only one trying to protect her well-being. It wasn't fair. I wish you were engaged in fighting the danger against your life. It's not easy to be a world away just waiting to hear about how someone tried to or succeeded in killing you. You know, I wished you could fight back. Let me finish, she said in a commanding tone, to which Eragon took a deep breath and looked away, clutching the letter in his fist. He was the angered one now. I don't like your plan, but it doesn't mean it's not worth a try. He looked at her again. She relented, but he was still in a fighting disposition. I would do it anyway, he challenged her. Arya licked her lips and encircled his waist with her arms. His anger faltered a bit, but it was just a bit, so he didn't hug her back. I know. You told me you would do anything to keep me safe, and I believe you. She placed her humid lips on his neck, then brought them to touch his ear. Just don't push the cord too much. It may snap. A shiver ran throughout his whole body. He suspected it was for two reasons, one being the amazing sensation of having her so close breathing on his skin. The other one was scary, for her words, being slippery as the elven manner mandated, sounded too much as a threat. It wasn't, for he knew she was only warning him of the consequences of straining their relationship in the future, but even then, he didn't want to see that happening. Arya, I hate thinking of losing you. But if I do one day, it will be with a clear conscience even if it hurts like nothing else, because I will know that I didn't turn my back on you when you needed protection. His tone was still serious, upset. She didn't back away and kept the contact of her lips on his skin. I know, my love. She kissed his left cheek and moved away. They locked eyes as she waited for his mood to lighten up. Eragon took a deep breath, closing his eyes. He did it 5 times before looking at her again. She blinked an eye and smiled softly. Go on now, before you arrive late at your meeting with Nasuada. It amazed him how sweet she had learned to be around him, how careful. Of course, she had a temper and raised her voice when something was not of her taste, like that bloody letter, but when she had time to calm herself down, she would show him she cared. It was heartwarming, and he could easily get used to it. It was her way of enjoying their time together instead of letting it slip through their fingers when they didn't have too much of it. I wonder why she wants to see me alone before meeting with us all. Arya smiled because of his new tone of voice and started to walk up the stairs. Wedding arrangements, perhaps? Oh, yes, it makes sense. He stepped to the living room and looked up to see her almost at the top of the stairs. Which reminds me, Arya halted and looked down. We will need a safe place to have the wedding so Orin won't know about it. Yes, and I was thinking. He brushed his mustache with 2 fingers. Would you mind if I offered them the hill? Afterward, we can hold a small celebration by the river, just a dinner among friends. Shouldn't you be discussing this with the bride? She tried to keep serious, but her eyes were gleaming with playfulness. Well, yes, but it's your hill, our hill. I mean, Eragon. He stopped and stared at her. Lend them the hill. And the river. It's all right, she said, and restarted her climb. Right. I will do that. From up there, she added. Why don't you offer them the house for the night as well? Eragon frowned. Is she mocking me? He rushed to the bedroom to see that she had already entered the washroom. Arya, he called and waited until she answered. She opened the door just enough for him to see her face, knowing very well she had undressed her nightgown and robe for a bath already. Yes. What do you mean? Offer them the house. They need a place for the wedding night, don't they? Or do you expect them to spend such a special moment inside that mouldy mountain of yours? Eragon was surprised, and a little offended by the way she spoke of his mountain, crafted with a lot of effort and thoughtfulness. Are you serious? Don't be silly, Eragon. You know I can't lie in this language. Now go meet with her and make the offer. If that's the case, he smirked, I can't offer her the house. Her brows creased. Why not? It's not my house to offer. It's yours. And you aren't supposed to know about the wedding, so she let out a heavy breath. Fine, do whatever you want. She was already closing the door when his foot got in the way. What now? His malicious grin told her exactly what he wanted. Maybe his wandering eyes that traveled throughout her exposed body helped to get the message across. Oh no. You will be late for your meeting. And I have to scry Deathada as well. I'm the head rider, you are the queen. I'm sure we will be forgiven for our lapses. Her head nodded no, but her hand allowed his entrance and pushed him to her. Don't make me regret this. She whispered in his ear as he lifted her by the thighs and placed her on the counter. You won't? I promise. As foreseen, he was late. Terribly. His feet moved so fast on the steps to Nasuada's floor that he thought they might have seemed like a blur. Being with Arya was like flying during a gale, full of ups and downs, laughter and tears. Not to mention the constant butterflies in his stomach. He dreaded the times she would spend too much time in silence, fearing she would find a matter to fight him for. Or she would snuggle up against his body at night and say sweet words in his ear that would make his limbs go numb. She could advance with a ferocious stare or a lustful gleam in her eyes. He could never know what to expect. The thought made him chuckle with excitement for being loved by such a complex creature. Yes, he was loved by her, now he was sure. Hearing those words coming out of her mouth was an incomparable feeling that he wished to share with the world, but couldn't. We can't have it all, can we? He finished his run and approached Nasuada's quarters. At her door, he composed himself, fixing his tunic and hair, and knocked 3 times. Enter. He walked in to see Queen Nasuada at the table enjoying her breakfast with his half-brother, Her expression couldn't be farther from the anger he was expecting. "Good morning, Your Majesty," he bowed. "Good morning, Eragon. And please, no formalities. This is a family gathering." She motioned for him to join her and Murtagh at the table. Her servant poured juice into her glass, left the jar on a trail on the sideboard, and left the room. Eragon sat down beside Murtagh and opposite her. "I apologize for being late. I lost track of time. A half-truth is better than a full lie. Don't worry, brother. We just started." Murtagh patted on his shoulder and smiled friendly. "I bet you haven't eaten yet. I didn't see you in the dining hall earlier." Murtagh started to fill Eragon's cup with tea, more tea. "I will be made solely of herbs if I drink much more than that." Saphira was amused as she listened to his thoughts from the Hall of Colours. She had gone to watch her eggs with Fernan. "I haven't. I'm starving." He lied and accepted the cake Nasuada was offering him. "So, Eragon, I'm glad we are having this opportunity to talk freely. As you have imagined by now, we're here to talk about my pregnancy and our wedding." She glanced at Murtagh before staring at him. I've imagined it. And I would like to congratulate you, Nasuada. A child is always a great joy." She bowed her head with beaming eyes. The lines around her lips and eyes creased with a content smile, revealing that she was already a mature woman. "Thank you, Eragon. I'm glad that we will be bonded by family ties soon. And I'm forever grateful to you for agreeing to help us keep this a secret. I feared you would refuse." Eragon forced the cake down his throat to speak. He was not enjoying the idea of having 2 meals just to hide his relationship. Well, maybe he was enjoying just a bit because Nasuada's cooks were the best in the entire world and that fruit cake tasted like pure bliss. I must be honest. When Murtagh told me all about this, I thought I would refuse too. It's not right that the Order interferes directly with the political games played in Alagasia, games you must agree that your pregnancy will ignite. But then I reconsidered and thought that above all the politics, we are dealing with family matters, as you said. Nasuada smiled grandly, and Eragon thought he saw her eyes shimmer because of tears. "Thank you," she said simply. He nodded and took another bite of the cake. "I guess you are starving after all that exercise, huh?" Saphira joked. He felt his face warming up and the food getting stuck in his throat. Drinking some tea to wash it down, he thought of something to divert the attention from him. Eragon cleared his throat and said, "Have you thought about the details already? When is it going to be where?" The couple traded looks and then got their attention back to him. "We were hoping that you could suggest what you think is best." "We wished it was as soon as possible," she said. "Oh, great. I'm the main event again." He leaned back in his chair. "It can be sooner than soon. Tonight or tomorrow. And I may have a place. It's a small hill by the river." "The Tealdari Hill?" Murtagh asked with a smile. "I saw it on the map Arya has in her study." He felt himself getting warm again. Damn it, I hate secrets. They make me feel nervous and clueless about how to act. Saphira was having too much fun to answer him. "That's the one. Isn't it close to the house you built for her?" Eragon inhaled deeply and tried to sound casual. "I thought she would feel more at home there than here, inside the mountain. Hasn't she spent many years living inside a mountain?" "Farthen Dua." "I imagine she had grown accustomed to mountains by now," Murtagh asked Nasuada in a jesting tone. "Leave him be, Murtagh," she reprehended, but kept a smile the entire time. "Don't worry, Eragon. One day you will have with her what I have with your brother. Just give it time and don't give up hope." If it were other times, he would feel saddened by her suggestion. However, being so cornered in the way he was, he couldn't feel more relieved that she thought he was only a man whose love hadn't been reattributed yet. He sighed in relief, but it looked like a heartache. "Good, I won't," he smiled back at her. "So, what do you say?" They traded meaningful glances again. I can even ask Arya if you can spend your wedding night at her house. I'm sure she won't mind staying one more night inside the mountain since she had lived many years in one, right, brother? He narrowed his eyes to Murtagh, that laughed softly. Right, brother. For me, it's settled. How about you? He asked Nasuada. If Arya agrees, why not? Brilliant. Eragon said, wishing to slip away from there and their prying eyes. Is that all? Nasuada's expression turned serious, and his spine froze. I'm afraid not. We need to speak about Orin. Eragon didn't have enough disposition to avoid the conversation or to pretend he had. His shoulders dropped, and he saw Murtagh stir in his chair, looking from one to another. Don't tell me the situation is this bad. Nasuada looked down for a second like a child that's been caught in naughtiness. King Orin is difficult. As you know, Eragon rested the fork on the plate and wiped his mouth after a sip of tea. Allow me to say this, Nasuada, but you are not easy yourself. The comment raised a saddened chuckle in her chest. No, I'm not. But no one rises to power being too friendly and amicable. We all need our fair dose of poison in our fangs. It made him think of Arya's poison. What could it be? Did her people fear her? Anyway, she restarted, Orin has always been difficult, but since the agreement has been signed, our relations are taking an irreversible toll. Was it because of the ultimatum you sent him? It helped, I can't deny. But he wants my crown. It's not a secret. I only figured that after 20 years he would have settled with the second best. Eragon thought of what she said, and in his mind, it all sounded like a big load of sh. Eragon. Have more respect. Saphira reprehended him. They're not listening, but you are making that face. The uninterested and petulant face. Stop it right now. How do you know which face I'm making? I can feel it like it's my own. Now pay attention, she's talking. But the problem now is that he's slowly moving up the borders. Eragon blinked and shook his head. Wait. What? Nasuada breathed heavily and looked at Murtagh, who encouraged her with a nod. Orin is provoking a war, Eragon. I have sources confirming that he is trying to push the borders until I recognize it as an act of war and raise my armies against him. Why would he do that? You can crush him. Not to mention that you would have Oryx and Arya's support. He can't win. Murtagh intervened for the first time. He is provoking the Order as well by doing that. It's our duty, as you know well, to protect the peace. By threatening such peace, he is inducing us to act. He wants people to see that the riders are not so impartial as it seems. He wants the people to rebel against us and Nasuada, for the fear that history is repeating itself. If he succeeds, no dwarf or elven army can stop him. Eragon's jaw dropped. How can I be so naive? Saphira, you're not naive, you're good. You don't have the poison in your fangs, as Nasuada said. Arya is good. Arya is old. She's seen a lot. He felt lost. They couldn't be worrying about borders and territory when a real threat was knocking on their door. This seems so foolish to my eyes. We shouldn't be discussing this. We should be worrying about the magicians in the north. The real war, again, another look between Nasuada and Murtagh. It's precisely what I need you to think about. Look, Eragon. Nasuada leaned forward on her elbows. I need your permission to hide the information from Orin. He will use it against me to substantiate his allegations of favoritism by the Order toward me. He will say that you are giving all your attention to my territory and none to his. Eragon shook his head. It's not right. It's not under our moral code. The whole land should be protected by the Order. Brother, listen. Murtagh reached his shoulder and squeezed it. He will not stop until he has Nasuada's head on a pike. He wants her throne. He will use everything he can to do it. She is doing the same as it seems. Saphira said, she is. How can they pretend she is not? Measure your words carefully. Eragon. You don't want to create an indisposition with the queen, who's about to become your sister. A heavy breath escaped his lips. Nas Uada, try to understand. Whatever the actions the order takes, it will never be political. We are under a powerful oath, lifting the heaviest of burdens. You asked, but I must refuse. He saw her eyes sparkling with fury and her chin raising an inch. I will tell everyone about what happened to the Lord of Sunon, and I will hear everyone's demands equally. There's no other way. They traded stares for a while before she nodded very slowly. I remember you pledging your sword to me once. I did. I will keep my word, but there's a stronger bond tying me to my obligations with the Order. If those two oaths collide, I have no choice. My obligation as head rider takes precedence over my loyalty to you as a vassal. I'm sorry, very well. I guess I will have to find another way to deal with Orin. I'm afraid so. I'm sorry, Nas Uada. I'm already keeping your pregnancy and marriage a secret because it's personal, but I can't hide a matter that important to the safety of the whole Alagasia. I understand, Eragon. She smiled cordially. Oh, she does not understand. Saphira observed, I will suffer for that. You could choose another time to come, when we don't have to deal with all this political drama and just be together by the river. Arya noticed his lack of motivation by the way he dropped himself in the chair next to her in the conference room before the rest had arrived. They had agreed with a meeting with the other leaders, but before he went to see Nasuada in her quarters. Arya suspected it had been a tense conversation. I would if I could. She watched as he rubbed his face too hard for her taste with intentions of hurting himself. Her hand stopped his, and she brought his right hand to her lap. Saphira and Fernan, that were accommodated behind their chairs, traded looks in silence. Through their bond, Fernan was passing the general emotions Eragon had during the meeting with the human queen as Saphira shared with him. I hate it. Why can't people live in peace? Why complicate things? Why so many secrets? Arya sighed. She wished she had the answer to those questions as well, but knew she was one of the aggravating factors to his discomfort, being so entangled in her own political drama and secrets. They were early to the meeting, so she let him speak. He told her what she wasn't supposed to know, for Nasuada trusted in his confidentiality. Nevertheless, whatever they had discussed, it would be kept hidden since she wouldn't betray neither of their trust. I don't know where you will stand if there's a war soon, but if I were you, I would start thinking about it. What makes you assume I haven't already? His mouth opened humorously. Arya spared him a small smile before putting on her hard mask again. The one she wore when talking politics. She hated to use it with him. I will be forced to join her armies if she marches south due to our alliance, but it will complicate my situation. He frowned as his hand squeezed hers. Why is that? She debated with herself how much she should say. It was more cautious of her to hold her tongue and ignore his question, but she found herself more prone to sharing information with him those days. She guessed it was because she trusted him too much. Going to war, a human war, at the expense of elven lives, just to keep an alliance will not be seen with good eyes by my people. And that's all that I'm telling you. Right, he bent his head in agreement. And how was your meeting with Deathada? It was better than I anticipated. And that's all I can tell you as well. He nodded and looked away, lost in thought. Arya took the chance to study him. She noticed he looked tired all of a sudden. The meeting added 20 years to his unchanging youth, so he could wear it around his eyes and forehead. In nothing, he resembled the fiery young man and the passionate lover of that morning. Politics took a big toll on him, and she wished to take all the heavy load from his shoulders and place it on hers. It was her turn to squeeze his hand so he could look at her. Eragon received her reassuring look and relaxed a bit, almost smiling. Changing completely the color of their mourning, he told her about the arrangements for the wedding. It would happen the next day at sunset, after the games on the hill. Nasuada and Murtog would spend their wedding night at Arya's house, but before they would all dine by the river. I'll ask Katrina to cook, and I'm guessing Ismira will be in charge of the music," he added. "You have to prepare your speech." Eragon didn't have time to respond, because their sensible ears captured the sounds of steps at the end of the hallway, so she let go of his hand and spared him a last fond smile. Her hand felt cold without his. The meeting was a disaster. Eragon never had a chance. He was massacred, and there was nothing she could do, for she was not there as a rider but as a monarch, like the rest of them. At his narrative of what had transpired in the north involving the Lord of Sunon, Rainier, and Murtog, Nasuada and Orin fought for the bigger influence on the Order. Oric threatened to burrow the dwarf nation even deeper in the Bayer Mountains if Eragon didn't send him more riders to fortify the region, and Gajvog resented being Le. Arya just watched and fantasized on digging Tamerlane deep in each one of their throats for putting Eragon in such a difficult position, but also for making preposterous demands. "I don't believe you understand how the Order works," Eragon said to them all after much discussion. "I'm not a leader of a nation like you that must take sides. We don't take sides, we fight for all people." Orin's eyes sparkled, and Arya saw the corners of his mouth twist in an evil smile. "That's not what I understood from our conversation the other day." Eragon dug his nails into his palms, and his cheeks were flushed. All eyes were on him. Arya didn't know what they were talking about, but she feared that Eragon had stepped out of line. That day we both said things we should regret. He was making an immense effort to sound controlled and polite. "If I offended you, Your Majesty, I'm sorry. It was not my intention." "Offend me," Orin scoffed. "You threatened me." "Do you deny it?" I understand how it might have sounded like a threat, but Orin's hands fell heavily on the table, startling those around it. "You are a coward, boy. Now that you are under pressure, you are incapable of telling the truth." His voice was loud, and his face was red like a tomato. He then turned to Arya and said, "Is that the leader you want for your order? Is that the man you all admire? This fickle-hearted child?" Arya's heart started beating like a drum inside her chest as her hands formed two tight fists on her lap. When the guttural sounds that came from Saphira's and Fernan's throats echoed through the room, she thought it was the sound of the growl she didn't know she was letting out. Very slowly she rose to her feet and leaned forward on her palms, planted on the table. Arya faced Orin, looking down to him on the other side of the table, and let her breath out 3 or 4 times before speaking in a low and feral voice. "I don't know what he said to you, Orin, but of 2 things I'm sure. First, he is not a boy or a child. In fact, you would do yourself a favor by treating him as your equal. Second, the matters of the Order do not concern you or your political moves, but I will grant you the courtesy of telling you that Eragon is the best leader this Order could have. Now, if you have any problems concerning the decisions taken by him, you are welcome to stay in this room and attend our meeting to expose to all the dragons and their riders how inappropriate you think our leader is. But of course, you would be going against the man who taught them almost everything they know." Arya could practically touch the fear emanating from Orin's body. It was a rotten smell that she would find in the most coward men when facing her blade. At that moment, her blade had nothing to do with his fear, but her stance did. She was a ferocious beast protecting her own, and Orin was an outsider that threatened their peace. She would never allow it. Orin cleared his throat and looked away from her hovering, angry eyes. "I believe that it's not necessary for me to stay." His voice trembled. "I already said what I had to say." Arya straightened her body and looked around at the others. "And I believe this meeting has taken an unwanted turn. What do you all say we continue this another day, so we have time to breathe and collect our thoughts?" "I agree," Nasuada said. "Aye." Gajvog and Oric agreed as well. "Very well." Nasuada stood up. Meeting adjourned. As soon as the leaders left the room, Eragon dropped his head and banged it on the table, letting the loud thud travel around the room. "Stupid. I'm an idiot." He did it again, stronger this time. Arya sat back down and asked with a serious voice, "Eragon, What did you say to him? Nothing that could justify calling me a coward. His voice was muffled, being his face pressed against the table. He said that he knew how I was plotting to have him removed from the agreement, and I simply told him that he could be surprised by the riders one day. It wasn't a threat, not clearly at least. Eragon. What did you do? Will you ever stop being so reckless and getting yourself in trouble? That's what I said. Saphira commented. I think Orin had it coming. What a petulant little man. Fernan moved to stand behind Eragon in a symbolic gesture of support. Arya sighed and continued her scolding. I don't think you ever stop to ponder on any matter. You just take important decisions as they are frivolous and casual chores. I thought you had grown by now, but it seems nothing had changed. Arya, Fernan gave her a warning. Her words caused Eragon to keep his punishing as he banged his head on the table once more, whispering offensive callings to himself. He was defeated. Arya knew she wasn't all wrong, but couldn't help feeling bad for saying he hasn't grown. She knew he had, and saying that was as meaningless as Orin's accusations. Intended to hurt, but as false as the notion of the sun rising in the west. Her left hand slid through his back and rested between his shoulder blades. Thank you for defending me even though I don't deserve it, he mumbled. She massaged a tense spot on his back and replied with a calmer voice. You deserve the defense, but also the criticism. You could have been better, Eragon. You know it. Arya was ready to stop his head from banging on the table again, but when he raised his body it wasn't to hurt himself. He looked into her eyes with a defeated expression. I know. I was wrong to talk back to Orin that day, and the words were left hanging on his tongue, and his eyes became unfocused. Eragon. Arya removed her hand from his back and touched his face with concern. She looked around and saw that Fernan was watching Saphira as she froze at her spot as well. They waited. Half a minute later, Eragon regained motion and looked at Saphira with a deep line of expression creasing his forehead. With his mental voice, he resounded inside their heads. We need to take this meeting to the Hall of Colors. Immediately.